Hi there, and welcome to this week's show. I'm joined by the Honourable John Baird, who, while putting out various fires in Stephen Harper's Conservative government, was the Minister of Foreign Affairs between 2011 and 2015. John, welcome back. You are officially now a friend of the show.
Great to be with you.
As well as putting out fires, I should mention that you started a few, and you had somewhat of a reputation in the House. But I do remember one time, it was the last question period in 2011, and Justin Trudeau had called Peter Kent a piece of shit, and you rose, and everybody expected the worst, and you said, "Merry Christmas and peace on earth," which was maybe not completely in character. Anyway, moving along. So we're going to talk foreign affairs, and we could do with a little bit more peace on earth right now. If we talk first about Gaza and the comments that Justin Trudeau made yesterday, when he said that the killing of women, children and babies must stop, especially around the Al-Shifa hospital. That drew a diplomatic slap from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, who said that Israel is not deliberately targeting civilians, unlike Hamas, and is providing humanitarian corridors and safe zones, while Hamas is preventing people leaving the area at gunpoint. Do you think that Trudeau has unfairly singled out Israel for what he called this human tragedy?
Absolutely, he's trying to have it both ways. You can't support both sides at the same time. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. It's really unprecedented for a close friend and ally like the Prime Minister of Israel to openly criticize our Prime Minister. And what was even more shocking is that the leader of the opposition in Israel, former Prime Minister Yair Lapid, joined Netanyahu in condemning Trudeau's comments. I've never seen this in diplomacy anywhere, where not just the leader of a government, but the leader of the opposition comes out and slams our Prime Minister. I think it's regrettable, it's unfortunate, but there's a pattern here. Our relationships all over the world are in a mess, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's China, even before Madam Meng and the two Michaels, whether it's India, even having the Prime Minister of Australia badmouth our Prime Minister. I mean, it takes a lot of work to screw up the Canada-Australia relationship.
I mean, it does seem that the kind of holier-than-thou approach that Trudeau has taken has just set people on edge, even if they are our allies.
Well, Israel, the government of Israel, sent the videos and photographs of what Hamas has done in Israel, videos and pictures showing the most disgraceful and awful things. And no Liberal MP even showed up to see them. Prime Minister Trudeau campaigned against Prime Minister Harper, said that there was no daylight between he and the Conservatives on Israel, and that he's flip-flopped on his votes at the UN, losing the respect of the Arab world, and now trying to have it both ways. There's perhaps been no other military in the history of the world, of humankind, who goes to greater extent to avoid civilian casualties. But when a father of three puts a rocket launcher on the roof of the family home and is hitting the hospital in Ashkelon, what do they expect Israel to do? Just to allow him free reign to continue to rain down rockets on civilian populations in Israel? They're facing excruciatingly difficult decisions. These civilian deaths are awful. They're terrible, but they have all the fingerprints of Hamas, and Hamas has got to take full responsibility for them.
So getting back to Trudeau's comments, I mean, there does seem to be some domestic pressure, maybe even pressure from inside his caucus, to shift in this direction. I mean, I think on the first few days after October 7th, he was making fairly sound statements about Israel's right to defend itself. It seems to have shifted. It does seem to be in relation to pressure from his caucus. Apparently, there is another letter asking for a ceasefire coming from his caucus.
Well, Israel, we should point out, John, Israel had a ceasefire, and that ceasefire was broken by Hamas on the morning of October the 7th. They bear entire responsibility for this. I can tell you, if there were rockets being fired from one side of the Ottawa River onto the other side in Ottawa, the people would want one single thing. They would want their government to make it stop, and that's what the Israelis are doing. And you can't try to have it both ways. I think supporting Israel is not a popular thing in all quarters. but it's the right thing. And Trudeau has one eye on foreign policy and the other eye on the next election. And a caucus, a group of his MPs that are getting increasingly nervous and increasingly concerned that they're facing defeat in the eye.
Let's just move on to, we've got a bit of a shortage of time, and the Prime Minister is in San Francisco today at the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. You've attended a few of those. I think you closed our embassy in Tehran at APEC in 2012.
I did.
Do these things achieve anything? Can Canada expect anything? Can the rest of the world expect anything?
Well, I think our relationship with the Asia-Pacific region is tremendously important. APEC is involved primarily with economics, not foreign policy or national security. And our relationship with the Asia-Pacific region is so incredibly important, whether that's Mexico, Chile, and Peru, to China, Vietnam, and India. So I think it's an important opportunity to strengthen ties there. But we go in there as a diminished country with a diminished government. The relationship with China fell apart long before the two Michaels were detained. The relationship with India is probably at its lowest level ever in Canadian history. So we don't have a lot of friends around the table. I don't think we're treated seriously, and it's going to be a difficult time, I think.
I mean, perhaps fortunately, Modi is not going to be in San Francisco. As you mentioned, the relationship at the moment is as bad as it's ever been. Again, Justin Trudeau seems to think it's to his political advantage to keep the temperature up on this dispute that we have over the alleged involvement of Indian agents in the murder of a.
Honestly, I'm not privy to intelligence, and I would find it terrible that if those charges are true. But I don't know how the government thought they could accomplish anything by handling it the way they have.
Well, how would you handle it? What would you do?
We're already in bad shape with India. Mr. Dressup went on his 8-day tour, which offended the Indians, and getting close and snuggling up with radical extremists in a small percentage of the Sikh community in Canada. We've really got a black eye in India. I would have chosen to deal with the allegations directly, face to face, behind closed doors. I think that's important. We've got to acknowledge, though, as well, as terrible as these allegations are, this is quite a common occurrence. It's not something new, and we shouldn't be Pollyannish about it. I mean, there was a close friend and ally of Canada who used drones to kill 7 of his own citizens in a third country, and summarily executed a man in front of his family in another. That was Barack Obama. So let's not be Pollyannish.
Right. But clearly the world is a more dangerous place. India is a key ally for all of anybody who believes in democracy, I think, regardless of whether you agree with everything that government does. I mean, I guess crisis in the world is perennial. The Economist talked about this week about red lights flashing all over the place. There was a great quote from George W. Bush's former foreign policy advisor, who said it's like an 8-burner stove with every pot in the burner and every pot about to boil over. I mean, are you concerned about Canada's preparedness militarily and politically for this new world we're living in?
Well, we've got to come to grips with the reality that we've got to have to spend more money on defense. I'm pleased that the government has given the green light to the F-35 purchase. I think that was a good...
Let me just stop you there, by the way. Under your government, defense spending went under 1% of GDP.
There's no doubt we've got to do more, and we've got to take our share of the blame. But Canada was always prepared to do our share of the heavy lifting, notwithstanding our budget. We did the heavy lifting in Afghanistan more than just about every other country in NATO on a per capita basis. We were in the tough places, taking the tough assignments. We were the only country other than the United States to be bombing Islamic State targets in both Iraq and Syria. So we weren't afraid to do our share of the heavy lifting, which I think compensated in some way. But there's no doubt we've got to do more.
So that's on the military side. On the foreign policy side, Canada's new foreign policy statement calls for pragmatic diplomacy, in inverted commas, where we act as a broker with countries in the global south. Melanie Joly, the foreign affairs minister, says the world cannot be reduced to democracies versus autocracies. it seems to me that it actually can be, and it seems that the Chief of the Defence Staff thinks it can be, because he says that China and Russia already thinks they're at war with us.
Well, shocker, I'm going to agree with Melanie Joly.
You are?
I feel badly for her because she inherited a pretty abysmal foreign policy and a pretty abysmal state of our diplomatic relations around the world. You know, there's only about 37 purely liberal democracies in the world, and there's 193 countries at the UN. So we have to work with people that we don't always share our values with. That's why in the Harper government we were able to have a good, pragmatic relationship with China. We didn't share their values. I was able to see firsthand Stephen Harper raise legitimate concerns face to face with leaders. At the same time, we were able to accomplish a lot for Canada, whether it's an R&B trading hub, a nuclear cooperation deal, access to Canadian agricultural products, we were a foreign investment protection and promotion agreement. You've got to work with people who you don't agree with. And I fear the West is walking into another Cold War with China. And that means a new arms race. And it means instability for international peace and security. So I think we need to dial it back. I am pleased that Joe Biden is going to be meeting with President Xi. I think that's a good thing. We need to reconnect. I mean, just having the military line open again would be a huge progress for the West, including Canada.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've run out of time. The headline was going to be about your comments on Israel, but now it has to be John Baird agrees with the Liberals. So,
I agree with Melanie Joly on one issue. But, I've got to say, though, John, in all reality, our foreign policy is a mess. We've been flip flopping. At the UN, the Trudeau Liberals kept the votes that I changed in 2011 at the UN, and then just before the vote for the Security Council, a few weeks after an election, they changed them. Even the Arabs rolled their eyes. Canada had respect in the Arab world and the Muslim world. They perhaps didn't always agree with our position, but they respected that we took a principled position. And I think that's what we've got to keep our eye on, is to see what a Poilievre government can do to begin to repair the damage that's been done in the last 8 years.
Great. Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on again. Speak to you soon.